Hi, this is Brad.
And this is Spencer
Welcome to Old Movies for Young People.
with our top 10 horror movies of the 20th century.
Stay tuned as we count them down.
Coming in at number 10, it's The Haunting from 1963, directed by Robert Wise, written by Nelson Gidding from Shirley Jackson's novel The Haunting of Hill House.
Hill House is a giant troubled house that has stood for 90 years, and all of its inhabitants have come to a bad end.
Now Dr. John Markway has assembled a team of people to prove whether or not the house is haunted once and for all. This intrepid team of Ghostbusters find out far more about themselves than they do the house in this atmospheric nail-biter. It's the ultimate haunted house movie without a ghost.
Coming in at number 9, it's the terrifying Black Christmas from 1974, directed by Bob Clark, written by A. Roy Moore. This often overlooked Canadian horror film follows a group of sorority girls terrorized by bizarre, obscene phone calls from a man threatening to kill them.
It features some unforgettably horrific images, like the woman who's suffocated with a plastic dress bag, and the supremely creepy shot of the killer's eye staring at the camera through a crack in a door.
It's also considered one of the first slashers and had a strong influence on other films now considered classics, including When a Stranger Calls and John Carpenter's Halloween. Not to mention the final twist is one of the best in the genre.
Coming in at number 8, we've got Hush Hush, Sweet Charlotte from 1964, directed by Robert Aldrich, written by Henry Farrell and Lucas Heller. This shocking follow-up to Whatever Happened to Baby Jane takes the terror one step further by striking the perfect balance between suspense and gore.
Bette Davis gives a killer performance as a former Southern belle who's suspected of murdering her lover 30 years ago. All the locals say she still keeps his dismembered head and hands somewhere in her creepy old house.
The twists and turns come fast and hard in this impressively scary flick featuring a wonderful ensemble cast.
Coming in at number 7, The Fly from 1986, directed by David Cronenberg and written by Cronenberg with Charles Edward Pogue.
The Fly tells of an eccentric scientist who, after one of his experiments goes wrong, slowly turns into a human-fly hybrid creature, imperiling his own life and that of the woman he loves.
Gory and provocative, it was a critic's darling and a box office monster.
Coming in at number 6, it's Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer from 1986. Directed by John McNaughton, it was written by McNaughton and Richard Fire. This infamous psychological horror film about a depraved spree of killings is about as unsettling as it gets. Michael Rooker's strangely sympathetic performance as Henry gives the film a sense of humanity that makes it much more effective than if he'd simply been a remorseless killer.
While its violence and moral ambiguity were enough to earn the movie an X rating, it's actually surprisingly restrained and cerebral. The ending is so disturbing that to even think about it now can still cause chills. Highly recommended for those with perverse tastes.
Our pick for number 5 is The Hitcher from 1986, directed by Robert Harmon and written by Eric Red.
Jim Halsey, a young man delivering a car from Chicago to San Diego, spots a man hitchhiking in the West Texas desert and gives him a ride. Non-stop action and horror ensue as Howell is caught in a terrifying cat-and-mouse game with an insane serial killer who has chosen Howell to stop his reign of terror.
Effective and surprisingly homoerotic.
Our choice for number 4 is Silence of the Lambs from 1991, directed by Jonathan Demme and written by Ted Talley, the only horror film to win Best Picture.
The film follows Clarice Starling, a young FBI trainee who's pulled out from her training to apprehend a serial killer, known only as Buffalo Bill, who skins his female victims' corpses.
To do this, she has to create a psychological profile and seeks the advice of the imprisoned Dr. Hannibal Lecter, a brilliant psychiatrist and cannibalistic serial killer who manipulates Clarice to his own ends.
Coming in at our number 3 spot, it's Alien from 1979, directed by Ridley Scott and written by Dan O'Bannon. This is one film you can't leave off the list. The story of Sigourney Weaver's Ellen Ripley and the crew of the Nostromo battling a deadly passenger picked up from an alien planet is the ultimate in paranoia-fueled terror.
The special effects and puppetry used to create the alien creature are worth the watch alone, but what's really scary about this movie is the threat that comes from within. And if you don't know what that means, you're in for a shock.
It's truly a white-knuckle ride from start to finish and close to a perfect film.
In the coveted number 2 spot, we have Halloween from 1978, directed by John Carpenter and written by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill.
Halloween is the quintessential slasher film. It's probably inspired more imitators than any other film on this list, but none have measured up to the original.
The story of Laurie Strode and her babysitter friends being stalked by an escaped lunatic wearing a blank white mask works so well because it is so archetypical.
It's got an instantly recognizable score, darkly beautiful cinematography featuring the chilling use of the killer's POV, and maybe the best final girl ever in Jamie Lee Curtis.
What makes this one of the scariest movies of all time is that you don't have to do anything to invite the terrifying Michael Myers to your town, to your house, or to your room where you sleep. He'll find you.
And finally, it's the greatest horror movie of the 20th century. At number 1, it's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974, written and directed by Tobe Hooper.
Banned in many markets and denounced by critics and clergy, it made millions and spawned a franchise.
Although the character of Leatherface and minor story details were inspired by the crimes of cannibal murderer Ed Gein, its plot is largely fictional.
The film follows a group of friends who fall victim to a family of cannibals while on their way to visit an old homestead. What results is a festival of bloody chainsaw mayhem. This film is the face of horror and is the #1 horror movie of the 20th century.